So per usual, welcome to Screenshot. We're wrapping up week 2. This is a virtual artist talk series led by Scope of Work. Just as a reminder, the goal of Screenshot is to highlight both SOW members and creative veterans. So on Tuesday we had Wayne, and today we have Sabla. And really it's about highlighting how folks are maintaining their creative identities through the global crisis, but it's also to see like an intimate window into an artist's process and their work and their practice from the privacy of their homes. And so we're doing this twice a week for 6 weeks. They're 30 minutes long. We'll see examples of work. We'll do a Q&A. And then we'll talk about a skill or a tool or best practice connected to the artist's creative practice. So just as a reminder, everyone's muted and remain muted so that our featured artists can really focus and go about their presentation. If you want to ask a question during the Q&A session, just write your question in the comment section and then I'll ask the question. We have a few questions that were submitted over Instagram, so we'll make sure to get to those. But we're super honored to have Sabla Stays be our veteran creative. We were talking earlier, Sabla and I have been friends for many years. She was like one of the first friends I made in New York, and we met when she was 17. And so we've been at it for a long time. So, but Sabla is a multidisciplinary designer and art director who creates from a space of cultural connectivity. Her work seeks to channel the multidimensionality of our collective experiences through image and design. She's worked with clients like Solange, Omondi, and more. And so we super appreciate you taking out the time today, and we'll let you take it away.
Oh, thank you for inviting me. I'm really excited to talk to you all. So it's something like I've been supporting for a while now. I actually was like kind of a SOW member at some point. But yeah, like Ida said, I'm Sabla Stays. Stays is literally my last name. So I consider myself like an ex-fashion designer turned graphic designer, art director. I attended Parsons School of Design. I was studying fashion design for 4 years there, and I also studied it in high school. It wasn't until, I want to say 2017, actually it wasn't until 2018 that I decided to like move in a different direction. Throughout the years of being at Parsons, I was also simultaneously working at Afro Punk, which I marked kind of as the start of my career. And I always say I accidentally became a graphic designer through that, because I started as a marketing promotions intern, and then I knew how to use Photoshop, InDesign, Illustrator, and like one day I like stayed late with the graphic designer to help her finish off all the assets. And from there, like my boss took note, and throughout the summer, like they hired me on for like some small freelance things, and then suddenly he announced me as like the graphic designer. He didn't really ask me either. So like that's how that came about. And like for the 2 years after that, I was a full-time graphic designer there throughout the summer. So each time I'll finish up my semester at school, I'll be in Brooklyn in their offices working on the festival and running with my hat cut off during like the actual days of like performances and stuff. So that kind of put me more into the world of graphics, but also be in a space where like culture, art, and music meets. And those pillars are like really important to what I do. So I left Afro Punk in 2015, and I went back to school. I like took a leave of absence at some point. So I graduated in 2017, and after graduating, I was also interning with Omondi, and by the time I graduated, I became her full-time design assistant. And that was when I still was like obviously in like the fashion space. That was kind of me jumping back in. And I really enjoyed my time there. I was there for 3 years. She's like one of my closest friends now. But by the end of it, I I resigned and I took some time to myself to actually think about like what I want to do and what space I want to like be in, because I love the art of fashion. Like aside from actual graphic work, I can pattern make, I could sew, I could make you a coat. Like I can do all of that. So, but at the same time, the fashion space just didn't give me what I was necessarily looking for, and just, excuse me, culturally wasn't for me. I've always wanted to exist in like the art space, but somewhere where everything kind of just intersects. And you can see, and you'll see that in like the clients that I work with, like even with Rachel at Omondi, she wasn't like a very stereotypical designer. We crossed in many different arenas in the work that we did. So yeah, after that, I was pretty much unemployed, and I was like, okay, I'm going to freelance. And I pretty much took like a month and collected all my work throughout the years, and put it into a PDF, made me a small website, which got a lot of good feedback, which I created the website as kind of just like a temporary space, but it actually became permanent. And after I set all of that up, I pretty much sent out like a blast email to my entire network. And from that email, I want to say was like really the start of this like new journey that I'm on currently. And it's actually how I got connected with Solange. So I didn't mention this earlier, but right now I'm currently like the full-time art director at Saint Heron / Solange. And I've been doing that since February, but it's been like a year in the making. So in 2018, when I sent out that email, she was one of the people I connected with, and which led me to work on her last album, When I Get Home, alongside some other like amazing people. So yeah, so that's kind of like a small run of like my entire like career and how it came up until this point. But yeah.
So where are you from?
Oh, forgot about that part. So I'm from New York, born and bred, born in Harlem, grew up in Far Rockaway, raised there as well. I attended fashion industries in Chelsea, and as I said, I went to Parsons. So I've been in New York my entire life. I'm 25, so I've been here for 25 whole years. So yeah.
Nice. Well, we'd love for you to jump into some of your work,
Oh,
and see
cool.
see some of your stuff.
Gotcha. Let me share my screen. You guys can see it, okay? Okay. RIP to the old SOW logo. I have it on the front of my sketchbook from school. But yeah. So this is a project I worked on. I was like commissioned by this platform called Not 97 to create basically their mixtape artwork. I believe every month they release a mixtape highlighting up and coming musicians who have like, I think below like, I could be wrong, but like below 10,000 followers on Instagram. So it's not really about like clout or anything. It's about highlighting actual like art and people who are emerging. So this wasn't like the final artwork, but it was my favorite. It didn't make the cut entirely. It's like it made its way on the back of like the artwork, but this was like the final artwork that actually released. And my process working through this, I actually did it in one night in LA. I like stayed up just to get it done because I was like working on a bunch of other stuff and honestly procrastinated on it. But it was also during Black History Month. So I wanted to, through my research, I wanted the imagery to like kind of speak to that, but not in like a literal cheesy way. Probably just more like a coded way. Like, so this image is from this student-led newspaper from the 70s. And the premise of like the newspaper was highlighting black news, black art, et cetera, and black academia. So this is the image I chose, and it was interesting because since obviously I'm making a mixtape cover for music, I love this image because the child has like the earphone in, and I didn't even realize like they had that in the 70s. So I found that interesting. And yeah, and the graphic on the front is Morse code for not 97, just FYI. I feel like not a lot of people notice that. So as stated, this is the album that I worked on with Solange, When I Get Home. And this is the artwork that I created for it, alongside this design studio creator based in Spain. So it's like super collaborative. Because when I jumped into the project, a lot of stuff was like already done, and it was more so my job to like pull everything together visually, to make it all obviously communicate cohesively and everything. So this is a website that we worked on for with Black Planet, which was hella dope. I was like very excited about that. I never had a Black Planet. I was young, but from a space of cultural connectivity, everything I do is very relevant to my upbringing, what I resonate with. And I feel like that's displayed in the work that I do to the clients that I select and whatnot. So through this project, like we created kind of a symbolic language library. So as you'll see, like you see a repeat of certain design elements throughout everything. This is a part of like the merch that we release, these clear vinyl bags, which I actually have with me. I could show you guys later. And then we also produce some like flags that we're selling as well. And they all have like her lyrics and everything on it. This is a a scan of my massive sketchbook that's literally fallen off its hinge. This sketchbook, I think it ranges from 2015 to 2017. It's pretty thick, but this was like my time at Parsons, me working through my thesis at the time. So this is kind of my more personal work. I try to keep a division between like obviously my personal practice and like my actual career stuff, in terms of like graphics and everything. This is another page out of my sketchbook, and I wanted to include this because it kind of gives you a peek into like my process. So I'm very analog, at least I used to be. I'm not as analog anymore, but that element is still there in my work. Even if it's purely digital, anything I create digitally, I want it to feel tactile. I want you to feel like you can touch it, or I want you to think it's a scan, you know? That's always like the goal. I'm not really into like very flat graphics at all. More commercial stuff I don't really adapt well to. But this particular page it started from Photoshop. Me messing with a photo composite, playing with the transparencies, and I always like printed stuff out and pasted it back into my sketchbook. Because like even with this, like it starts off with a sketch, I scan it in, and then I render it through like photo collage and Photoshop. I print it back out, and then I go back over it with some like sort of hand expression. But this in particular, it actually developed into an actual print that I made. So I'm sure you can see, like there's some sort of visual marriage between the two. And this is like another iteration of the print I developed from it. This is some of my work that I did with Omondi. This was, when I worked with Omondi, it was mainly ready to wear. So dresses, coats, skirts, etc. This was our first time diving more into like a quote unquote streetwear aspect, because not a lot of people are buying a $3,000 coat. Like it's just not happening as much anymore, especially when it came to our audience. So we wanted something like a more accessible piece. So we started to explore actual screen printing, and this was like one of my favorite pieces that I developed. And it's funny enough, this shirt was an accident. And I say that because like when I'm doing graphic research and stuff, I always start exploring fonts. So I had like this Illustrator board of all of these different fonts I downloaded and typing them out in Omondi. And then Rachel just came over and like, oh shit, like that's sick. I'm like, what are you talking about? And she's like, that's the shirt. So that's how that came about. This is a book we created for the CFDA. There's only one copy ever. I don't even have a copy. So you guys get to see a little peek of it. So I love doing, my favorite medium is doing print work. So whether that's posters, books, little small invites. And I feel like that speaks to why I want all my digital work to look like it's tactile, because I kind of wish it was all tactile. But yeah, so throughout the book, it was just like a, how to explain it? An overview of the brand itself, kind of like a coffee table book. So it goes into all of our collections and process and yada, yada, yada. But yeah, so that's it for like my work little presentation.
Nice. We're gonna jump into some Q&A, but it's just like so amazing to see your, is this a page from the book?
Yeah, yes, it's a page from the book. I pretty much like obviously did a screenshot of the website. But I was about to get into technicals, but I altered it a bit. Obviously so it could like meet print standards and everything.
So yeah. Well, one of the questions that we got on Instagram is, how did you meet Solange? But it sounds like it's because of that email that you sent out.
Yeah, from that email. So like working with Omondi, working with Omondi, we were in contact with them because we did some work. We sold some stuff to them to like, I believe, to be on their Small Matter website. So I was always I was like the point of contact. So I was like always talking to people within there. So like, of course, naturally, when I sent out that mass blast, they were part of my network. So like they also got that email. So that's how
sending an email out to your network when you're looking for work is always a good.
Because there's always someone who knows somebody and yada, yada, yada. But yeah, it was like, I honestly sent that email out to like 80 people. It was crazy. But yeah.
One of the questions is from Darren: what networks do you believe aid you in these networking opportunities to meet Solange and these other companies you've worked for?
Wait, say that one more time.
I think the question is about what networks you're a part of that has helped you connect with artists like Solange or other companies.
I have to admit, that's kind of hard for me to answer. It's kind of hard for me to answer. I guess it's because like a lot of the networks and like just the communities that I'm a part of has just came about like pretty organically. And also through work, I will say, a lot of my relationships has been facilitated through the jobs I've had or the internships I've had. So I guess if you think about it that way, like each time I started a new job, I was a part of a new community. Like when I working at Afro Punk, really opened up a lot of doors for me. Sorry guys. Working at Afro Punk really opened up a lot of doors for me as far as like connections go. And so did Omondi, but both of those communities merged a little bit, but they were also very different. So I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, that's great. One question from Jasmine is, how has your work changed since the quarantine?
Good question. I don't think my work itself hasn't really changed. Because honestly, as far as from a working perspective, a lot hasn't changed for me because I'm always at this desk pre and post quarantine. But my process did change a little bit. So my work hasn't changed, but my process did. Like at the start of quarantine, it was like I had like a really bad creative slump. or just emotional slump. And I was actually thrown off by feeling that way, because I was like, I'm used to staying in a house, but obviously I have to take into account like the state of the world and how that's affecting me, and whether it's direct or not. Just knowing about it is emotional labor, and obviously that affects my creative process. But through talking to like my coworkers and everything, there was like just a lot of support there, and just having open conversations, because like I was one of those people that like, I'm not being productive enough. Like, what the hell? I have all the time in the world. But it's okay to not always be productive, and I guess that's the thing. Like, that this quarantine allowed for me in my process is to accept it more than versus like combating it.
This is from Jorge, and we got a couple other questions about your work with Solange with the live performances. So Jorge is asking, as a part of Solange's creative team, how do you aid the live performances? And someone else also asked about the visuals for their concerts.
So I just started working with her. So I haven't really been involved in that process. I'm excited to be involved in like that process. So I can't really offer a lot of insight on that. One, it wasn't a performance, it was more a curated performance. So she wasn't herself performing, that she did at the Getty in Los Angeles. I was a part of that remotely in terms of like curating the actual physical assets. So like there was a zine that was like created for it, which is like right here, like a little accordion thing. So like that was like my involvement, and as well as like creating the website. I worked alongside another designer, Megan Tatum, on that, but I haven't really been involved in like the actual performances yet. I'm curious on how like that's gonna evolve, but yeah.
This is from Chioma. How did your fashion education help you learn graphic design, or was it self-taught?
So it's a little bit of both. I'm a MySpace kid, as I'm sure a lot of us here were. So I always credit my graphic design start at MySpace, and I didn't really realize like that's what I was doing. So in that sense, I was self-taught, and throughout high school, I had a fashion blog that evolved evolved beyond fashion, and I was creating on my own graphics for that. And through going to Parsons, my freshman year was like a foundation year, and so you don't really go directly into your major. They give you kind of a taste of everything, whether that's I had a 3D class, I had a 2D class, I had a visual communication class. And in my visual communication class was where I realized I just naturally had a knack for like the programs, because I was using them already to a certain extent. But I want to say those courses specifically with a professor named Ann Finkelstein, who I kind of want to give her credit for like my capabilities today. She really evolved me as like a digital designer. But yeah, so it's a little bit of both. So it's like self-taught and schooling a bit. But yeah.
Mitson is a two-part question. What informs your work, and what are some of your favorite references?
Okay. What informs my work? So much. Like, I obviously like what I like as a art director, graphic designer, obviously it's like aesthetics first and beauty, but I feel like what informs that is, one, I always like say my experiences. I've always been like an art kid. Like I've been drawing since I've been drawing forever. So I've always had like that eye. So I try to merge these quote unquote underbelly elements, these underbelly experiences into like a quote unquote elevated design space. So I like to merge like the pristine with the gritty. That's always like my goal. Um, I don't know why like that's kind of hard for me to answer, because a lot of what I do, a lot of what informs like my work is so innate that sometimes it's actually hard to like break it down, you know. It's just like it really just comes from within. But obviously like I have like an extensive like research process. I do a lot of visual research. I have many banks of images and websites and bookmarks and yada yada yada.
Is
But
there
yeah,
any good go-to places you would like to recommend for references?
I was just talking to Ida about like, I hate saying this, but like I really do go to Pinterest a lot. That's always a very soft starting ground for me. And I use it as a tool to lead me other places. Because like I feel like it's very easy, especially in this digital age, to see something like something and just like screenshot it and save it and that's it. Like no, I see, like say if I'm on Pinterest, I click through wherever, like because everything is generally sourced, but sometimes it's like sourced wrong. So I would either save that image, click on that image, see where it leads me, which tends to open up another visual realm. And say if like I click on that link and it just ends up at like a Tumblr post that was reblogged, I will do a reverse Google search, image search, and like find out where it's from. So like that's a lot of like my visual process. I have just started using Instagram a little bit more, and I never really had like considered it a part of my practice, but and I actually have it here in this presentation. That's going really fast, but like as you see on the left, I have like different folders that I organize like my archives into. So Instagram is also becoming like a really important tool for me. And as you can see, like this is an example of like one of my Pinterest boards that I have. This is specifically my graphic references, and I actually can show you guys a little bit more.
What is
This
your
is,
Pinterest handle is one of the questions.
oh, actually, I don't know. Give me a second. I could tell you right now.
We can dump it into the chat. Yeah.
Yeah, I think actually I'll just drop the link in the chat. Why don't I know how to use Zoom? Okay. So I'm trying to figure out how to get to the chat.
It's all good.
Okay, I got it. There we go.
We have a few more minutes. Oh, there we go.
Cool. Yeah, I dropped it in. But yeah, this is an example of my board. Some of these, some of them are locked. I don't know. So I'm like kind of weird about having like all my references like as like public space.
Yeah.
I don't want everyone to know where I got my stuff from, but yeah, this is, and a lot of this stuff dates back to when I was in school too. Like, so you'll see a lot of garment studies and everything, but this is like a really like important tool for me. And as you can see up here, I have, let me see, like, so type foundries, I have different portfolios that I like, and then this is, you know, I organize everything up in my tabs. And then I have like my resources where I get like my mock-ups from. I have like website design research. So I have like a few places that I go to for, you know, visual research.
One of the questions, and I feel like a lot of people are struggling with this, and this is like kind of like a daily thing for, I think, creatives, is how do you deal with imposter syndrome? I mean, you're working with such big artists, and
I love that
how are you
question.
dealing with imposter syndrome, and how do you manage it?
I love that question so much because I suffer with that. Um, honestly, the way I combat it, I'm still combating it if we're gonna be honest here. Um, talking with my community a lot, I have a lot of friends who affirm me, which it's honestly helpful. I love affirmations. It's one of my love languages. But yeah, talking to my community, like having them reassure me in that space, and actually like taking a minute and sitting and reflecting on what I've created, what I do, looking at the people who do reach out to me. Like if someone respectable as like a Solange, or like for example, like one of my favorite artists, legit my favorite artist right now, his name is Arthur Jafa. He recently, as of last year, I want to say, reached out to me, which blew my goddamn mind at the time, because I'm like, whoa. So like stuff like that, like if these people are reaching out to you, obviously like you're doing something right, you know? And I'm not saying like you need like these major names to like reach out to you to feel good about yourself. It truly starts with you and being kind to yourself and everything. Cause like, I know like as creatives, we're incredibly critical about process and everything. And yeah, like practicing mindfulness. And it's kind of, a friend of mine recently said, you have to talk to yourself like you're a 5-year-old child. Like if a 5-year-old child knocks something off the table, are you going to yell at her or him and call them stupid? Like, no, you're going to say it's okay, you know? So yeah, I hope that answers the question.
We are running over a little bit, but I think a good place to wrap things up is, what's your end goal? What's the big plan?
That end goal is still a work in progress. But essentially I eventually want my own practice. I feel like it more so exists in like a fine art space, because I feel like being a fine artist, you can do whatever. Because like I can do video, I can do graphics, fashion, etc., etc. So for years now, I'm like, how do I merge everything into one practice? And yeah, I guess essentially that's what I eventually want to do, is like have my name stand on its own, and have work that isn't necessarily at the mercy of a client, but it's more so for me, and like my own creative expression. So
Well, we're so thankful for you to share your work and share your resources, and obviously can't wait to see what you do this next year in your own practice and with your clients and all that. Hopefully we'll be seeing you more.
Definitely.
For outside people again. Thank you everyone for showing up and showing Sabla some love. Affirmations are real. You're amazing. You're talented. We love you. Keep on doing it.
Yes, keep doing it.
I'm going to, if everyone could do the survey, I'm going to put it in the chat right now. So just take, it's like literally 2 seconds. If you can do the survey so we can know what you learned from today's session, and we can share some of that with you, Sabla.
Also, if you guys want to contact me, here's my website, my Instagram handle, and my email.
Yeah, there were some questions about fonts and where you're finding fonts and all that. So reach out to Sabla. She's available.
Yeah, please forgive me if I take long to respond. I'm like swamped right now, but definitely email me.
Great. Thank you, everyone. So good to see you.
Thank you.
Okay. See you next week. We'll see you soon. Okay. Bye.